Me again. One thing I wanted to just mention, we were sharing the joys and sorrows, and many, of us probably felt like, and, we said, okay, this is getting a little long. But sometimes I think it's good to let life interrupt our agendas. So I've got some things I'd like to share, but there's nothing more important than what was shared earlier, right? The way that we are a community of people, that we are here for one another, that we don't allow, there's a great quote I heard from someone that we think because we're in a community of worship that we have community, but we sometimes only have proximity. We're just sitting next to someone. So maybe we should just have a whole entire service one day of joys and sorrows and really sit with them. But we're not going to do that. So if I were to ask you to choose a word that describes your emotional state right now, think about a word that characterizes how you are as you enter this day. If you'd like to share that word, just tell me what that word is.
Anxious.
Anxious?
Worried.
Worried.
Grateful.
Grateful.
Excited.
Okay.
Hopeful.
Frazzled.
Okay.
Cautiously optimistic.
Okay.
Sad.
Really angry.
Melancholy.
Okay.
Scared.
What was that last one?
Multiplex.
You have to get them.
Wow. Okay. I got most of those. I wrote as fast as I could. My carpal tunnel's crazy right now. I'm just going to use these. 'Tis the season to be anxious. Hear any songs about that?
Yeah.
'Tis the season to be worried. 'Tis the season to be cautiously optimistic. 'Tis the season to be grateful. 'Tis the season to be excited. 'Tis the season to be hopeful. 'Tis the season to be frazzled. 'Tis the season to be really angry. 'Tis the season to be sad. 'Tis the season to be melancholy. 'Tis the season to be multiplex. 'Tis the season to be scared. This gives us a good way to frame the expectations of the season in which we are entering and the reality of how we are as we enter it, right? The disparity between the cultural messages we get during the holidays and our internal condition. Every late November, we are all handed the same script, aren't we? Be grateful, be cheerful, be hopeful, and do it now. And for a good portion of people, this season is a time of celebration, of gift giving, connecting with others, and connecting with our better selves, which may or may not have any religious beliefs attached to it. Generally, many people seem to have a slight or substantial shift in their attention during these weeks of the year. But for many of us, the season comes with pressure. It comes with performance anxiety. It can often land like a weight and not a gift. This time of year can press on grief we had tried to bury. It reminds us of people who are missing. It exposes fractures in our families, in our faith, our sense of safety in the world. And so for many of us, the holidays have this way of shining a big, bright spotlight on all the things that aren't quite okay. The distance in our families, or the tensions at our tables, or the divisions in our nation, or the people who are missing from the photos this year. The faith we used to hold easily that now feels slippery or gone. The sense that the world is burning and we're expected to roast chestnuts on the flames. And that's really the problem, isn't it? Depression doesn't defer to the calendar, right? Grief doesn't take a holiday. Our trauma doesn't pack a suitcase and head south for the winter. All of it comes to us at the same time we are expected to be outwardly joyful. And the really uncomfortable part about all of this, and here's some of the bad news, is that our problem is people. I used to say I loved working retail if it weren't for all the customers. The problem is people, either their absence or their presence. Human beings are inherently messy. This is why we're dealing with seasonal struggle. We are flawed and failing human beings, and we are living alongside billions of other flawed and failing human beings. What could go wrong? Right? And doing the work that I do, I've been feeling the weight that people are carrying because they're sharing it with me. They're sharing the heaviness of life. People come to me and they cry easily, which I don't take personally any longer, but they do. They get angry. They fail to find words. People tell me they've stopped doing things that used to give them joy, that they're not sleeping or not eating well. None of you, because you're well adjusted, but they tell me their marriages and their families and their workplaces and their social media relationships are all strained to some degree. 'Tis the season to be jolly, and they tisn't. Now, I know this is supposed to be a time when we all give thanks and we make peace and we nurture goodwill, we cultivate hope, and we are doing those things. But these things are far more difficult than they've been in a long time. At least they are for me. I don't know if they are for you. You may have political and theological consensus in your family. Or you might have massive rifts that seem insurmountable. And you might be ready to fully put all that behind you and embrace your loved ones these days as they are, or you may be, out of choice or circumstance, certain that reconciliation and coexistence right now are impossible. But I imagine we're all facing the holidays with some sort of tension to one degree or another. We're asking the same question regarding our families and our friendships and neighbors and schoolmates and coworkers. How the heck do we deal with all the stuff we've seen and the things we know and the pain we've incurred over the past year? When psychologists talk about seasonal affect, they often focus on light and weather, the way those things affect us, but there is also an emotional seasonal affect when every cultural cue says celebrate, while our lived reality might be loss or exhaustion or regret. And that contrast between what we feel obligated to be and what we actually are creates another kind of pain, doesn't it? And so what if we entered this season and said, I'm going to be exactly who I am and be okay with that? Naming this tension is our first act of finding sanity, which will give us a place to find joy. If we can describe the mess, we are already dealing with it more consciously. We're exhausted, yes. We're grieving, we're sad, we're angry. Some of us are hopeful and excited, so let's just glom onto them and suck all that out of them. Okay? There's something wrong with these people, but we're carrying the heaviness of another long year, politically, spiritually, emotionally, and now the calendar has the audacity to hand us tinsel and say, be joyful. And that being joyful would be a challenge for many of us, even without the continuous stream of constitutional crises and human rights attacks and tribal fractures. Even without all of this, the normal wear and tear, the usual collateral damage of life, of being human, would be enough to threaten to keep our holidays from being merry and bright. We have health issues. We've heard them today. We have financial worries. We have relational tensions and family squabbles. And we're dealing with all of it while being immersed in a calendar-specific expectation of good cheer. It's the most frustrating time of the year. We're going to talk about two seasonal pressures that we are feeling. The first is we're expected to be perpetually joyful. The obligation to be happy is there every day, all year long, but particularly powerful this time of year. And for those of us who battle depression, or contend with grief, or struggle with self-doubt, ordinary times can be challenging, right? But life is never more exhausting than in a season when everyone else seems to be singing. More than any other time of the year, we're obligated to be well, to pull it all together, to deck the halls, to don our gay apparel, let our hearts be light and be appropriately joyful. And so let's remember and be okay with saying that the holidays have a way of magnifying loss, of amplifying sadness. As we gather with people we love, we're mindful of the empty chairs, aren't we? We make note of who's no longer with us. As we repeat beloved yearly traditions, we realize that many of them have been interrupted by time and distance. And so when nostalgia comes through songs and movies and rituals, it feels decidedly bittersweet. And our culture doesn't do sad very well, does it? Just ask someone how they are. Everyone's good. Unless you're honest or you linger long enough to say, wait, actually, how are you? Maybe that's the gift we give each other this season, is to ask the follow-up question. Most of the time, we feel guilty for our grief and sadness because we feel like it makes others uncomfortable, and maybe it does, but many people who deal with depression and grief describe running into people who have reached their compassion threshold, when they're expected to have gotten over whatever they're dealing with, as if it was a single isolated event in the past and not a continuing wound. And when this time of year rolls around, we feel especially expected to joy up. But we can be a people who make space for the unpleasantness and the uncomfortable and the annoying. We can actually invite the sadness in during the holidays and declare that it belongs there too. And we also face the pressure to be, in addition to be happy, we face the pressure to be perfect. The lights on our houses, the shape of our trees, the shape of our waistlines, our Christmas card photos, the gifts we purchase, the cookies we make, the appearances at parties can all exacerbate the comparison sickness that we are afflicted with all year long anyway. We look at Hollywood and we feel like we're supposed to be the It's a Wonderful Life Bailey family, but we're more like the Griswolds, right? And we find ourselves, all of us, viewing other people's lives from afar and using them to measure our own up close. Whether the lights on our houses or the trees adorning our living rooms or our bank accounts or our marriages or our children or our bodies or careers or families. We view others in the soft, flattering light that distance yields, while seeing ourselves in the raking light of close proximity. That means we're always coming up short. We always feel lacking and less than. Years ago, I remember seeing a video of a UPS driver, and he was going about his route, and it was on the door camera of a guy named Dan, who he obviously knew. And he got on the door and he said, "Hey, Dan, listen, these lights, you need to do better." He's like, "Have you looked around?" Now, obviously he was joking, but Dan's probably doing the best he can. And what if this season we decided to welcome the what is of our lives? Not the what was or the what could have been or should be, but what is. Find the good in that. Because we feel the pressure to be happy and to be perfect, the holidays are a uniquely challenging season, one where we can have trouble being real. I remember last Christmas, I shared about the battle between the real tree and the artificial tree, and there was like a fight in the church. It was like, wait a minute, I love my artificial tree, and so we're not going there at all. But let's talk about personal authenticity. Because today, I think, is about we who are tired of pretending, and maybe we should just refuse to pretend. Now, we usually try to survive our relational challenges during the holidays by picking one of three lousy options. Here, as you're thinking about the gatherings that you're getting ready to enter into that may be fraught with tumult, here are the three options we normally choose generally. The ceasefire. right? The ceasefire is when we decide, okay, let's not talk about anything heavy this year. We vow a temporary truce, no politics, no faith talk. We plaster on our smiles, we make small talk about the weather and football and hope no one drops the words immigrant or abortion or healthcare into the conversation. So this is going to give us peace, technically, but it's the peace that comes with pretending. And that comes with a cost, right? So you've got the ceasefire, then you've got the scorched earth. That's the other extreme. You go in all guns blazing, you move unfiltered and out of F's, as they say. Every unspoken grievance is going to get airtime. Every hurt gets replayed. You finally decide you're going to let everyone know exactly what you think about their social media post. You might declare a no-holds-barred clearing of the air, but in close proximity to others, in places that are still very raw, you might create a wreckage that is too great to survive. So you've got the ceasefire staying on the surface. You've got the scorched earth where you're just going to say everything. And then you've got the ghosting, where we just don't go. We withdraw. We skip the gatherings. We could avoid, opt out altogether, buying ourselves some necessary time to heal and to rest and see clearly. But even that might rob us of the last holiday of this version of our family, because death doesn't wait for us to get our stuff together. So, we've got the ceasefire, we're going to stay on the surface. We've got the scorched earth, we're just going to tell it like it is. And we've got the ghosting, where we're just going to opt out for self-preservation. And the truth is, none of these options are perfect, are they? They all cost something, because there's no clean way to navigate a messy season in a messy world with messy people as you and they are. No choice is wrong, but each of those choices ask us to choose between honesty, connection, and health. And the work of adulthood is to balance those three rather than picking just one. But instead of looking for this perfect approach, what if we ask this question? As I enter this season, who needs love and rest and mercy most right now? And how can I offer or receive that? So here's a way to think about this. Maybe right now, the one who needs the mercy and the love and the rest most is your child or grandchild. They just need normalcy for a few days. They need a holiday like we want them to have. And so maybe on their behalf, you're going to make that sacrifice and enter into those gatherings with them centered. Maybe it's your estranged parent or sibling who you're trying to see the best in, and in an effort to acknowledge their humanity, you're going to lean into that relationship during this time, even though it's going to cost you something. Maybe it's marginalized and forgotten and vulnerable people, the people on the edges of community that you want to give love and mercy and rest to. And so this season is going to be about activism, caregiving, and charity, about spending more time with those people and less time with the people you always used to spend time with. Or maybe it's you. Maybe you're the one who most needs and deserves love and mercy and rest right now. Maybe the most radical thing you could do this season is to give yourself that kind of gentleness by releasing yourself from the expectation to be present. Here's the great news, friends, in this messy season. You don't have to love everyone equally well at the same time. We get to triage. We get to say, okay, where is the urgent need? And respond to that need. We get to decide where our energy and our empathy and our boundaries are going to go. It's not selfishness, it's stewardship of our humanity. And if you're a religious person, there's another layer here. I grew up as a Christian, many of you did. I was told I was supposed to love God, right? But I also have to love my neighbor. I have to love the least of these, the people under duress. Then I have to love my enemies, the people who are causing them duress. And I have to love myself. Well, that's a lot of love. And I ain't got an infinite supply of it, no matter what the songs tell you. So the mature move is to discern who needs that love the most and who am I most capable of offering it to. Sometimes that will lead us toward difficult people, and sometimes it will lead us away from them for a season. But the bottom line is that we need to do away with the expectations of a perfect holiday or a perfect version of ourselves or of anyone else. So let's rid ourselves of the pressure to be more perfect or more joyful than we are capable of being. Brene Brown says imperfections are not inadequacies. They are reminders that we're all in this together. You find a perfect person, then there's a problem. But every one of us can find those places of vulnerability. Toba Beta says, practice doesn't make perfect. Practice reduces the imperfection. And so we're not going to figure this out while we're here, but we strive to be better than the person we were yesterday. And Stephen Hawking says, one of the basic rules of the universe is that nothing is perfect. Perfection simply doesn't exist. Without imperfection, neither you nor I would exist. So let's try this season to enjoy our imperfect existence. Now, we all want a neat answer, a 5-step plan to fix the fractures and clean up the tensions, but there isn't one. There's no map that takes us back to the way things were. There's only the jagged, uncertain road to wherever we're going next, and it's okay if that road is full of questions, because this season is not about getting it right, it's about showing up as truthfully as we can. So this would be the point in the message when I'm supposed to tie everything up neatly with some priceless nuggets of truth so that we can all get on with our holidays and celebrations and reunions, but that is not happening. All I can let you know is that we're all in this uncertain, ugly messiness together, and we'll all be sitting in the paradoxical tension of giving thanks while in some ways lamenting those we're giving thanks for. Celebrating life while grieving what we no longer have. Of seeing so much ugliness and yet trying to manufacture beauty. To be around so much despair and yet to lean into hope. So however you choose to navigate these holidays, know that it's the right way. Give yourself permission to not pretend. Give yourself permission to confront. Give yourself permission to abstain if you need to, and forgive yourself later if you decided you chose poorly. I think we should practice merciful realism. The courage to tell the truth about what's happening and the mercy to stay gentle with ourselves while we do. So maybe that's our invitation as we leave. To move through this season with mercy. Mercy for yourself. Mercy for the people who have lost their way. Mercy for a world that's running on fumes. You're probably going to get something wrong this season. You'll say too much or not enough. You'll feel too much or feel nothing at all. And when you do, just give yourself the grace to forgive it. Have an imperfect holiday. Thank you, friends.